And there's something very special about walking into that bushland. That to me is quite special, and it does have that power to heal. About where that wallaby goes under the fence.
Tom Tenniswood has been walking this land on Tasmania's east coast since 1977. He and his wife Jane have shared their property with visitors, their walks taking on more meaning when Aboriginal friends have joined them.
The more we looked, the more obvious it became how significant it was to those people.
Those conversations made the Tenniswoods think about the past and the future of the land.
So it is so special, and we really wanted to have the right custodians to continue looking after this land for all nations, for us all.
The Tenniswood family hereby returns this parcel of land to its rightful owner.
The Tenniswoods returned more than half of their 220 hectares of land to the Aboriginal Land Council of Tasmania in 2019.
I get quite emotional when we know how we treated those people. It was a takeover, and I'm hoping in my own heart that what we've done, perhaps for me, it's a little bit of, I won't use the word reconciliation, but saying to the Aboriginal community, we're sorry for whatever happened in the past.
Such a generous offer by such generous people. Hello, Tom and Jane. It allowed us to reconnect with our past.
How are you?
I'm very good.
Good.
And honour the memories that we've got of the people that we're descended from.
Lawyer and activist Michael Mansell has been instrumental in fighting for Aboriginal land rights for decades.
If you know your family connections, you know your responsibility to the land. The food that was available made Little Swanport such an attractive place for Aboriginal people over thousands and thousands of years. And even though those people were violently moved away from their land, because we have family connections with those people, we have come home again.
The returned land is managed by Aboriginal rangers trained in land management practices such as cultural burning.
The land hasn't been burnt for a lot of years after colonisation, so that also removes a lot of the fuel, also adds a food source for the animals that live there, and also it plays into the accessibility for the community. And some of the other practical stuff is weed removal. Having the connection to country is quite important, I think, because it shapes your values and what you want to do with the land. Being in Aboriginal hands, we're going to look after it the way our old fellas did.
It gives Aboriginal families a chance to come back on the land, feel that you're once again back in your traditional lands without the interference from anybody else.
The Tenniswoods are the only people who've returned private land to the Aboriginal Land Council in Tasmania. No native title application has been successful in Tasmania, largely because of a requirement to demonstrate a continuing connection with the land.
Our ancestors were rounded up after the Black War, where our ancestors were holding their own and defending their land. A deal was struck with the chiefs by the government that if they gave up their land temporarily and moved over to the Bass Strait Islands, after a period of time they would be allowed to come back to their lands. But that promise was broken. They were never allowed to come back. And so that physical connection of that one or two generations broke the native title link.
Tasmania's Aboriginal Lands Act was established in 1995 and some parcels of Crown land were returned. Only a small amount of land has been returned by the government and none since 2005. The Aboriginal Land Council has proposed this Crown land in Tasmania's Central Plateau be returned and managed as an Aboriginal-owned national park. In June, the state government made most of the land into conservation areas and reserves, but the minister says the proposal is still being considered. He says returning more land to Aboriginal people is a priority, but the existing legislation doesn't provide a straightforward or inclusive process.
Each time a parcel of land has been nominated in the past and successfully returned, it has been through an amendment to the Act.
The government is planning to change the law around land returns and management and is proposing a shake-up that would broaden the membership of the Land Council.
A lot of Aboriginal people don't feel represented or included in the current Aboriginal Land Council of Tasmania structure, and that is the only body that can hold title to land on behalf of Aboriginal people.
The Land Council strongly opposes many of the proposed changes, and instead of waiting for the government to act on land returns, the Aboriginal Land Council of Tasmania is issuing a call for more Tasmanians to return or bequest private land.
Private land handbacks are a way of people actually doing something rather than waiting for the politicians to get their act in order.
And if we can move with the Aboriginal communities into that direction of caring more deeply about land, I think it can only lead to wonderful futures.
Well, I don't think the land belongs to anyone. We're just custodians of it because we're not going to be here forever.